Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Entrepreneurial Marketing, Getting to Market. Let's look at the general framework of entrepreneurial marketing. We already know that marketing is very important for entrepreneurs. We also know that a small firm is not simply a scaled-out version of a large firm, so entrepreneurial marketing should be done differently. And we know why, especially because of the uncertainty. But what are the consequences for the general framework, for the main thinking of the entrepreneur when he tackles markets? Let's start with an example again. It was years ago when these two companies, Apple and Palm, came to the idea we need some kind of digital assistant. Might be a small digital computer or something like this. And they had the idea basically at the same time, so to say. And they started to develop a product. Apple took all the PC knowledge and put it into the device. Palm looked at probably PCs, looked at computers, looked at what could I put into a small device and people can still use it. And they came to the market. And the market wasn't really too happy about these first products, to be honest. It was, I wouldn't say it was a failure, it was close to a failure. So what did the two companies do? And that's very interesting to see. Apple said, okay, we know how to build computers, so why don't we make our product even better? We're a visionary company and we are a very knowledgeable company, so we know how to improve the product. And they improved the product. They did put more features and all sorts of things into the Apple Newton. And it was really a very elaborated, cool product. They put it in the market and they failed again. I mean, who of you have heard about an Apple Newton? It was a failure by Apple. What did the Palm people do? Well, first of all, it was a startup company. So they didn't have the resources to have another failure. Otherwise, they would have gone from the market. So what they basically did is they went to their customers, their existing customers, and asked those customers, why did you buy our product? And the customer said, well, I had this paper calendar and I had all the papers in there and it was a little disorganized. So I needed something to organize my calendar and my address book a little more. And when they heard that, they went into department stores and they bought calendars and they looked how people use calendars physically, and they tried to reprogram that electronically into the next Palm generation. And that's very interesting because from asking the customers, why did you buy? They got the customer view, and this is what they use to improve the product and convince the next customers. And this is the entrepreneurial way of going into the market, especially when you face uncertainty. I would like to show that in a more abstract way to you by comparing the marketing strategy process in established companies versus the marketing strategy process in startups. So start with an established company. Normally, established companies are already in markets, so they know markets. So what they do is they do market research really extensively all the time. As a startup, by the way, you can't really pay for the market research those established companies do. So again, the automotive industry, they look at new segments people are in to buy new sorts of cars. And that was, for example, when Mazda brought up the Roadster many years ago for people in California coming out of university, having the first job, but no family, so they only need 2 seats. They want to have fun. They could pay a little more than the regular cars, but they weren't able to buy a sports car. So this is how the Roadster came up, the MX-5 came up, out of segmentation, out of looking at demographical, psychological, or other buyer behavior variables analyzing the market and finding a segment which they are able to tackle with a specific product, developing that product, targeting that segment, and positioning the product actually in that segment they have found before. And this is how large companies do marketing and do segmentation, and this works out fine, especially if you're looking at all the incremental innovations taking place. So if you know a market, if you have the means for doing market research, you can do it like that. However, if you have a more radical, a newer idea, you might not be able to find your potential customers out of market research. Because with the radical ideas, in many times, customers can't imagine what the product really should bring them. They have to try the product. And we all know it from food, for example. So if we go to supermarkets, we're sometimes able to try the new chocolate. Because you can't sell chocolate by just saying, oh, it tastes differently. You have to try that. And that's the same with more radical products. And the palm is a good example. People didn't have this small digital assistant before, this small device before. So what do entrepreneurial companies ideally do? Well, what they have is they have market opportunities. You have an idea. And they say, okay, people might be happy to have a small digital assistant. Now I program the first digital assistant. So I identify the possible opportunity, and then I test myself into the marketplace based on my intuition, which should be right. So I program that first digital assistant and put it to the market. Palm did it like this. And then people buy that. And then there comes the very crucial question. When you attract the first initial customer base, the first crucial question is you have to go for personal selling. You have to find and remember the liability of startups. You're new to the market. You have to attract every new customer by yourself, by giving them your product, ideally selling them the product. And the second crucial point is you learn about the preferences and needs. And ideally, you ask those customers who bought your first product, why did you buy? Because those are the reasons people in the future will have to buy your product. And if people say, I wanted a small computer, the market would have developed totally different. Maybe the Apple Newton would have been successful. People are saying, I need a calendar, I need a digital assistant as a calendar. This is how they found out that they find themselves in the calendar market and not in the computer market anymore. So asking the customer the question of why did you buy brings you to understanding preferences and needs. And with those preferences and needs, you found out you can try to attract more of the same. So you take the reasons you heard from your customers, and with those reasons, you go to the next customer and tell him you should buy because. And then you might be able to attract more of the same. You expand your market, your initial customer base, and you can get broader. And this is the crucial process of startups, and not only startups. Every new radical innovation, when customers are not able to really imagine how should they use this specific product. And you might make experience for yourself if you go to mid-sized companies, for example, and look at the brochures. Do the brochures really reflect why the people buy? And this is a real easy question, but go to your customers and ask them, why did you buy? And try to find out the reasons people give you are to be found in the brochure. And the same what startups would do. But the very crucial in here is, at the very beginning, founders have some kind of, let's say, tech perspective. They have to change it, and they have to get a market perspective later on. So it's not about the features you like, it's about the features customer like and customers want to have, because this is why they buy the products. So it is very important for a startup at the very end to change from a tech innovation orientation to a customer orientation. This is basically the biggest challenge at the very beginning when it comes to especially tech founders. Trying to find which market you fit into and then aiming publicity or information at that market. You have your initial idea, it is pure intuition, and it's important to see whether it's incremental or disruptive. If it's disruptive, you have to act entrepreneurially, and then it depends on, are you really able to take the customer's perspective? And if you're able to do that, you can go through the process, the basic framework I described on the slide before, and this is the very important framework for entrepreneurial marketing. Now we go deeper into how you change your orientation within the next chapter.